Hi everyone, my name is Ken Stoltzfus. I'll be teaching the clinical psychology course at LCC this fall. I thought I'd take a moment and just tell you a little bit about myself so you know who's teaching the course and a little bit about what will happen in the course this fall, just so you sort of know what to expect. So just a little bit about me. My background's in social work. Here in the US, we have a title or a field that we call clinical social work, and that's the field that I was trained in. So clinical social workers in the US can actually perform psychotherapy. So my background is as a clinician, as a therapist. I worked primarily with people with substance abuse issues, and most of them also had comorbid mental health issues. So my background before I started teaching was working directly with people who needed therapy. In 2003, I started teaching at the university level. I started teaching social work. And in 2010, I had the opportunity to teach in Russia for a semester as part of a Fulbright scholarship program. I came back to the US and was really interested in being back in the former Soviet Union. And so I had the opportunity to go to LCC full-time in the fall of 2012. So my family and I moved to Klaipėda at that point. I was at LCC for a year and a half. We ended up having to move back to the US sooner than we thought we would. Our children were having trouble with education in Lithuania. They were having a hard time learning Lithuanian. My daughter was 14 by the time we came home, and while we needed to get her ready for university, she needed a few years to kind of get back on track academically. So we came back to the US. But since we've been back in the US, I've been coming to LCC each year to teach a course. Usually what I do is most of the course, about 3/4 of it is online, and then we have a week in person each fall where I really focus on clinical psychology skills, counseling skills, assessment skills, that sort of thing. Obviously, with COVID-19, Americans aren't allowed into the EU right now, so I can't come to Klaipėda. So we're going to do this class completely online. I'm also working full-time here in the US. I'm the academic dean at Friends University. Friends is a Christian university in Wichita, Kansas, and we have about 1,500 students. So a little bigger than LCC, but would probably seem sort of familiar to you if you're used to LCC, a small Christian university where the professors get to know their students and that sort of thing. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. And even though I'm not a psychologist, I've taught psychology for years and I've practiced as a psychotherapist. So I'm sort of close enough that I can teach this class. Okay, just to tell you a little bit about the class itself. Each week there'll be a number of different assignments and activities online. So each week I will have a video lecture, sometimes more than one video lecture. Usually we don't like to make the video lectures too long. So a couple weeks I've got 2 or 3 or 4 shorter lectures just so that you don't get too bored or feel like you have to watch everything all at once. Each week there'll also be 1 or 2 quizzes. The way I do the quizzes, I have them set up so that there's about 15 minutes to complete them. And they're pretty easy. Really, the quizzes are just to make sure that you're reading the assignments and watching the lectures. I made them time limited because you're not going to have time then to go back and hunt through the reading for the answers. You've got to have done the reading, watch the lectures, and be ready to go with the answers. But I don't make them real hard, so it should be okay if you've kept up with the reading and the lecture, the online lectures. So each week there'll be some video lectures and some quizzes, 1 or 2 quizzes. We'll also have a discussion forum each week. So I'll try to post either a video or an article or a case study, something that's sort of interesting related to what we're talking about that week. And then I'll ask you to have a discussion about that. And I'll put a couple discussion questions up. I'll be involved in the discussion as well, but I usually let the students respond first so that I'm not dominating the discussion. Because you know how professors are. We like to hear ourselves talk. So I try not to do that on the discussion forums, but I will chime in. I will be involved. So what I'm asking you to do is to respond to the questions that I pose, and that'll be your more in-depth response. And then I'm asking you to respond to 2 of your other classmates who have responded to the post as well. So you respond to my questions and you respond to a couple of your classmates' responses. And the idea with that is we try to make it as much like a discussion as possible in class. So in class, you might say something, a classmate might disagree, you might come back with your response. We're going to try to do that online as well. So I'm really asking you not to just say, thanks for saying that. I really agree with what you said, because that's not really a discussion. That's just sort of you agreeing. So try to get into more depth about why you agree or disagree with your classmates. If you have questions about that, I'd be glad to try to answer this for you. Wanted to mention too that there's also 4 papers for this class. So I think of them as one project, and I call it the Integrative Project for Clinical Psychology. The idea behind this integrative project is that you can integrate all the different things that you've learned in this class into analyzing and looking at a topic of your choice. So the first of the 4 papers, there'll be sort of 4 mini papers. They're each worth 50 points. The first of the 4 papers is choose a topic. And this could be a topic such as working with people who are depressed in Ukraine, or working with people with PTSD in Ukraine where there's an armed conflict going on, or it could be child welfare in Moldova. I'm going to encourage you to pick a topic and a place, and the place ideally would be where you're from. So I want you to think about what this looks like in your country. Now, I know some of you come from places where not much has been written. I know some of my Moldovan students in the past have said, oh, there's just not much written about my country. That's fine. Then look at the EU, look at the former Soviet Union. You can broaden out the region a bit. But so much of the clinical psychology literature is written about the US, and it's fine to include that, but try to make it more contextualized to where you're from. So the first paper is just choosing your topic and giving it a bit of background about it. The second paper, the second sort of smaller paper in this project, is a literature review. So you go through and find research literature based on your topic and you summarize that. The third part is a case study. I'm going to ask you to write a case study about someone who's dealing with a problem that you're writing about. And then the final part is that you're going to apply what we've learned in class, the clinical psychology treatment process, evidence-based practice, some of the things I'll be lecturing and teaching you about in class. I'm going to ask you to apply those to the case study that you've written. So hopefully this just sort of flows from one project to another. Because it's only an 8-week term, you're going to need to keep up on the writing. What I've tried to do as the term is coming to a close the last few weeks, I have fewer lectures and quizzes, so you have a bit more time to write. And the last papers are probably a little bit more difficult. They require more thinking on your part. The first ones are kind of just describing the topic and doing the literature review. So I've tried to adjust the workload so that it gets a little bit easier as you're further along into the term. That's mostly what I wanted to tell you about the class. I just wanted to tell you if you need anything, if you have any questions, honestly, if you just want to talk about your topic, or if you want to talk with me about your interest in clinical psychology, I'd be glad to meet with any one of you. You can contact me by email to begin with. That's just the best way because I'm 8 hours ahead of you if you're in Klaipeda. I know some of you may be in other parts of the world as well, coming in remotely. So because of the time zone difference, getting me by email first is probably the best idea. But once you've contacted me by email, I'd be glad to set up a time to do a Zoom meeting with you, or we can talk by WhatsApp or Skype or some other program. But would be glad to talk with you about anything of interest to clinical psychology, any of the projects or papers. I'm bummed that I won't get to see you in person this fall, won't get to meet all of you in person. And so if we can have some contact by email and by Zoom and some of the other programs, I think it'd be great just to get to know you a bit, and I'd be glad to be helpful any way I can. So I hope you're doing okay in the midst of COVID-19 and all the craziness that's going on, and really hoping that this semester goes smoothly for you. I know there's a lot of other things going on besides classes, just in terms of trying to stay healthy, trying to social distance. So I really hope you're able to manage all of that well. And looking forward to meeting with you, at least by Zoom and email, and being involved with you in some way or another throughout the semester. All right, best wishes to each of you. Take care.